Don't have Matt, but let's continue. We're now at Christchurch Airport and people getting ready for the flights to evacuate to Auckland and Wellington. Christchurch Airport remaining closed until further notice, though. At this stage, it's still being used only for emergency.
Tell us, what's your message for the people of Christchurch first thing this morning?
The first thing that we're asking people today is that the next 3 days, up through to the weekend, effectively, the city is closed, business is closed, schools are closed, and we'd like people to stay home. We've got a lot of people who want to come in and volunteer to help, but please stay home. Stay off the roads, do work in your local community. There'll be people that'll need support and companionship, and a lot of people very severely shaken.
So is that the cordon we're talking here?
That's right across the city at the moment.
What sort of boundaries are we talking?
Basically, we're talking the boundaries of Christchurch City until further notice, until we're actually able to guarantee safety on our roadways, until we've checked all of the bridges. It's no help to us to have a significant number of people moving around. So, if you like, treat the next 3 days essentially as you would a public holiday, with the exception that we don't want you out driving and looking around. I mean, that, as we recall from September, will cause us a lot of problems. Those roadways are lifelines. So, stay at home.
Okay, that raises some issues around food and water. How are people going to get those supplies if they need them?
Okay, well, if they need those supplies, particularly water, we will have later on this morning a network of at least 6 schools. We're using schools as water distribution sites. So we'll have some tankers on those sites. You'll need to think about taking vessels along to collect water. Now, the schools that we've got lined up so far are Littleton, Redcliffs, South New Brighton, Shirley, Wainoni and Phillipstown. Now, we'll give a call out a little later on this morning. We're still putting that in place, but people need to know that we will have water. Overnight, we requisition food and additional blankets and supplies under our emergency powers with the assistance of some major companies in Christchurch, so we could get food and bedding out to our emergency temporary accommodation centres. They are still Burnside. We had 700 people at Burnside overnight, about 250 here at the Ellerslie Flower Show site in Hagley Park. Many of those are tourists, and we've got an air bridge program set up today using Hercules and the government jet to shift people from Christchurch to Wellington if they're out-of-towners, be they from other places in New Zealand, but especially overseas tourists. To get that service, by the way, you need to go to, if you're in a motel, stay there. We'll be contacting you, but you might also be at one of the temporary accommodation centres, particularly in Hagley Park.
Should people go, though, out to a supermarket, or are supermarkets even going to be open?
Yeah, look, I would expect your local dairy and shops and those sorts of things will be open, and of course you need to go and get supplies. So what we're saying is the next 3 days at least and through until the weekend are not like normal times, obviously, and just treat it as if your business is closed, work is closed. Unless it's necessary, do not travel on those roads. So yeah, your local dairy will be running. You might have a shopping centre in your area. It will need to have been checked, obviously, if it's a mall. And we'll broadcast information through local media outlets through the day as we're able to update people on that. But that's the situation as it is at the moment. We will be using volunteers. We need a lot of organisation to use them well and to use them safely in the best possible way. We are working on that program at the moment, but right now do what you can in your neighbourhood. Check on your neighbours still, check on your street, tidy up those areas a bit if you can, and don't move around the city too much.
Okay, if people stay at home, then that allows the rescue workers in this city centre to do their job. What are you hearing? What's the latest you're hearing on this rescue operation? There are some encouraging signs?
Yeah. I think it's gone, they've made extraordinary progress overnight. A significant number of people we've heard have been got out of buildings alive. Of course, we're also finding deceased people in the rubble. I'm aware of around about, and this is an estimate only, about another 100 people that are trapped in buildings. Some of those are able to communicate with us, so we know that there are people who are alive and that we can get in to, but it's going to take time, and that's why we need all of the urban search and rescue teams. They're the specialist teams. They're trained in engineering assessments and in some basic paramedical skills as well, and they rehearse and train for just this sort of work. we don't want to put other people at risk and create yet another emergency on top of an emergency. We've got teams coming in from Australia, Japan and the USA to supplement our local teams that have been brought in from right around New Zealand. Over the next 48 hours, we'll have something like 700 of these highly trained people on the ground here in the city. So they're the right people to do the dangerous task, and we can't rush in meaning well but putting others at risk is really the bottom line.
Do you have any idea what the people trapped are saying?
No, I don't have any idea around that at the moment, no.
What about fatalities? Do we have any update on the number of fatalities?
No, we've got no new numbers to actually talk about at this stage. So that number still officially sits at around about 65, I think it was. We've set up, obviously, central city triage sites, and we need to keep people out of those areas. There are obviously going to be deceased bodies that we are handling. We set up temporary morgue facilities, and for a lot of very obvious reasons, we need to let our people get on with their work, get on with the vital triage and rescue work, and deal with the buildings that have been destroyed or collapsed or trapped people yesterday at 1 o'clock.
Mayor Parker, obviously some optimism that the rescue has been going well overnight, but some realism as well. I mean, are you expecting the death toll to climb? Do we need to steel ourselves for this?
Well, yeah, I mean, look, it's just speculation, but my gut feeling is yes, that we need to harden ourselves for what we're going to hear, and what we know, of course, is that they're all people that we'll end up knowing. So this is going to be a really difficult time for our community. There are family, friends, and all sorts of people that will be connected right throughout our community, and that's going to be really hard.
Opposition leader Phil Goff was touring the city last night. He felt that it could be as many as 200-300 people.
Well, it could be, and as I said, that we've got estimates. We just don't know at this stage, and rather than play a kind of a game around, well, is it this many or is it that many and who's right, I think that's really verging on the tasteless. We've got to find out and confirm as much as we can that on every site where there is a downed building or there potentially could be people trapped, that we've done everything we can to get people out alive.
How important is that missing persons line that people call the 0800 Red Cross? Because I think it's difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a very important line. People need to use that. And you know, if you know that someone's missing, or you're concerned about somebody, or if you know something that might be relevant, then you must call that Red Cross line. It's 0800 Red Cross. And of course, in normal emergencies, you still use the 111 line. But I think that people have to apply common sense. In a real way, many parts of our community will, to some degree, be on their own again for some more time today. Clearly, our focus is on the central city area with regard to the major rescue operation. We've got work going on around the city.
Littleton too, is it?
Littleton has been pretty much cut off from the rest of the city, as has Banks Peninsula to a large degree. Reports from Akaroa, I haven't heard any reports of any injuries and casualties over there, but around Littleton Harbour, that's very close to the epicentre. There was an awful lot of damage in there. Fortunately, the Navy are there, so we've got the frigate Canterbury. I know of 6 people that have been medevaced down to the Canterbury. I understand they're not in a life-threatening condition, but they do have some significant injuries. And Littleton is behaving superbly, as it did on the 4th of September. A strong community, they're pulling together, helping each other, and really that's the message around today. Let us and our expert teams coordinate all of the major issues that we're facing around search and rescue, but in your local community, do what you can, even just talk to your neighbours. Nobody slept, I would imagine, last night, and everybody's feeling very shocked.
Just finally, Mayor Parker, what's the message to the rest of New Zealand? Because they want to help, but what can they do to help?
Well, look, we've already had offers of money coming in again, and obviously we still have that Red Cross fund open, so if people feel that they want to donate, that's more needed than ever. What's happened here is that we've had effectively in the central city area, but right across parts of the city like Sumner, Redcliffs, New Brighton, Mum and Dad's place up in Heathcote was destroyed last night, and we've got a lot of areas that got through relatively scot-free in September that appear to have been hit very, very hard. We're still doing those assessments. We still need to check roads, we need to check bridges. Our big problem is water. Most of the city does not have water, that's why we'll have the temporary supplies coming in. Our wastewater system is completely trashed, and we're having to release where we do have systems that are operating that into the river.
Any idea when that will be fixed?
No, that's the kind of stuff that we'll be working on through today. Right now it's rescuing people, and the recovery phase of the operation is starting to wind up, and the building behind me now is starting to get underway.
Mayor Parker, thank you very much. Thoughts are with you today. We'll talk to you later on, no doubt. Thank you.
Just want to send a message to those families with people who are missing. They don't know where they are. They'll be feeling incredibly worried, incredibly uncertain, and they just need to know that everything that we can do, we are doing at this time to find people. We're getting people out alive, so keep your hope up, but you know, it is going to be a hard day as the news, I think, begins to unfold today. We'll have a clearer picture, and it's not going to be a happy picture.
Mayor Bob Parker, thank you very much for your time.
And that's why that Red Cross 0800 number, Red Cross, is so important for people who feel that they haven't got some of their relatives or friends who you know, were basically missing.
So that's important because there could be people trapped in buildings that you've got no idea.
And until we've got the search and rescue teams in place and systematically go through each building, we won't get an idea of how many people are missing and unaccounted for.
So let's recap the main points this morning. Civil Defence says the revised death toll stands at 32. That's the number police have formally identified so far, but remember the Prime Minister told us last night there were 65 deaths. At least 120 people have been rescued from the rubble, and the Mayor says there's an estimate up to 100 could still be trapped. All education facilities in Canterbury are closed today. Residents are being urged to conserve and boil water. If you need help, these are the numbers. The helpline 0800 77 999 and the Red Cross 0800 Red Cross, which is 0800 733 276. Police say up to 100 people may have been inside the Canterbury Television building in the Christchurch CBD at the time of the quake, and many of them remain missing this morning. Rescuers have pulled 3 more survivors from the building overnight. Matt McLean was there until the early hours of this morning.
This is as bad as it gets here, a building flattened, lives lost.
I don't think we can go past the fact that we may well be witnessing New Zealand's darkest day.
And then this shining light. One News was with a man as he reached his wife on the phone, buried somewhere inside.
Hello? She's in the classroom. Are you in the classroom? Hey, people are doing everything to save you. Which classroom you are? Hello? Who can I talk to?
Talk to the fireman.
She's alive.
Talk to the fireman. Come with me.
We also got word of a young Japanese man pulled from the wreckage just before 2 a.m. It's understood his leg had to be cut off for workers to remove him. We arrived at CTV shortly after the quake hit. It was evident this was one of the worst hit buildings. Everyone here has certainly been feeling it. This is still a very dangerous situation. Smoke continues to billow from the debris. We're also still experiencing aftershocks, and remember, time is of the essence. We've had casualties here, but as well as that, we've had tales of survival, including 2 young children that were pulled from the rubble. Police say they've heard from 6 people still alive inside, all in the same area of the rubble. That hope is what's keeping them going. Matt McLean, One News.
And 22 people are still trapped in the Pine Gould building in Cambridge Terrace this morning. Police say 22 have been rescued since the quake. Some of those trapped are in communication with rescuers and are not thought to be hurt. Rescuers have worked through the night under floodlights. Meanwhile, at least 17 significant aftershocks have rattled the Christchurch area since 8 o'clock last night. The strongest was a magnitude 4.8 shock at 9:21 p.m. that struck at a depth of just 7 kilometres. There have been 10 other aftershocks of magnitude 4 or greater. Australian search and rescue teams have arrived in Christchurch and more are expected to arrive this morning. 40 search and rescue specialists from New South Wales came last night to help the rescue effort. Another 30 bringing specialist equipment are coming in this morning. The Christchurch Mayor Bob Parker is this morning urging people to stay away from the city.
Until we're actually able to guarantee